Welcome to the Big Banks Talk Show. My name is Shamika Maria Banks, and we will be talking about how smart kids say no to sex. Our first guest will be Tamika. Would you like to share your story about when you tried to say no but couldn't?
Hello, my name is Tamika Dean. I'm here to tell my story about how I tried to say no to sex but couldn't. Well, when I was about 10 years old is when the story took place. I was quiet and very shy, not very happy inside. There was this man who was my uncle. He liked to be alone with me. He touched me and played games with me. I was scared and didn't think anyone would believe me. He finally left. I told my mother, but she didn't care.
What was Michael doing here last night?
Michael wasn't here last night.
Yes, I was watching the house. I seen him come through the back door.
No, he wasn't here last night. You saw somebody else.
No, you know what the judge said. If they catch him in your house, you and him, you're both going to jail because he's raped your daughter once before.
No, he wasn't here last night. That was not Michael.
Why can't you just believe her?
Because Michael wouldn't do a thing like that. That wasn't him.
Just confess it was him.
No, I don't think it was him.
I do. I seen him. It's just me and you here. You can tell the truth.
Well, okay, it was him here last night.
I know it was him.
And my future has changed because sex has become more like of a plaything to me. So I was really manipulated of my body and should have not been.
How do you feel after all that time?
Not very happy and depressed sometimes.
Were you able to tell anybody?
Nobody but my mother.
So how did that affect your life?
Made me use sex as something that really wasn't there. I wanted somebody to love me.
As you look back, what have you learned?
That sex is nothing to play around with, and that you can get diseases and stuff from it. So I really don't like it.
So how do you feel about yourself now?
Okay, I guess.
Well, thank you for sharing your story with me. After these messages, we'll be right back.
Hey, it's nice for you to have me over tonight.
You're welcome. I learned something new today. I know not to judge people before I meet them. My dad's told me some bad things about Jews, but I met a Jew today, and Jews are not that bad after all.
I'm glad that you don't judge people before you know them. I'm real happy for you.
Thank you. Please don't judge people before you know them.
Welcome back to the Big Banks Talk Show. I'm your host, Shamika Maria Banks, and our subject today is how smart kids say no to sex, but sometimes they get into trouble and can't say no to sex. Our next guest will be Gloria. Would you like to tell us about how you tried to say no to sex but couldn't?
Yes. One night I was on the way to my friend's house, and it was dark out. It was getting dark, and these two guys pulled up in a truck, and they asked me if I wanted to ride. At first I said, well, I don't got too far to go, so I'm just going to walk it, and they kept on saying, come on, you can go with us. You know, so they said they'd drop me off. Well, I ended up getting in the truck with them, which was a big mistake, because while I was in the truck, they said, we're going to stop at a bar first. And I said, well, his house is just right down the road. And they wouldn't let me out. So we went to the bar, and they asked me if I wanted something to drink. So I got a beer. And while I was in the bar, they were messing with me, you know, just doing little things that just bugged me and aggravated me, and I told them to stop. And then I started to walk out of the bar to leave, and they both came out, and one was on one side of me, the other one was on the other side, and they said, oh, we were just playing around with you, come on. And they, you know, got me to get in the truck with them, and we went to his house. So he said it was his house, and we stopped there, and we went into a horse barn, and I was really excited because there was horses in there, and I was having fun, you know, petting the horses. And he said, come in here for a minute. And he had this little office, and I walked in, and he pulled out a gun, he pulled out a big wad of money, and I asked him if the gun was loaded, and he said no. And I was scared because I didn't know what he was trying to prove. But anyway, this other dude, he started touching me and asking me to have sex with him, and I said no. And I started to walk out the door, and this other dude wouldn't let me out. He was standing in the doorway. There was a little window. He was standing in the doorway. He would not let me out. And so he ended up raping me. And I think about it a lot to this day. He ended up dropping me off almost the same place he found me. And I didn't tell anybody until one day when I was in school. I told one of my friends.
Hey Gloria, where have you been? I haven't seen you in a long time. You haven't called me? You haven't...
Oh, I haven't been feeling very well lately. I've been really down.
What's going on?
Well, something really awful happened to me. I don't want to tell you.
You can trust me. Go ahead.
Well, I was raped.
Oh my God.
Started grabbing my shirt, and I pulled and I ran up. I tried to get out the door, but the other guy was standing there in the window, and I kept trying to push open the door, and he was holding me. He wouldn't let me out. So the dude just kept on going, and he wouldn't leave me alone. And he raped me.
Have you told
I don't
your
want
mom?
to get graphic details about it because it's scary. Every time I think about it, I just don't know what to do.
Have you even told your mom?
Tell my mom.
If you want me to, I'll go over to your house with you and you can tell her.
I don't want to tell my mom. That's scary. My mom will be upset because she'll think it's her fault that she let me leave the house. I don't know. She'll never let me leave the house again. She'll let me stay at home. I don't know what to do.
No, I think you should tell your mom, and tomorrow, or let's not wait tomorrow, we'll go after school. I'll take you over to the clinic. It's free. And you can get checked out to know if you got anything or not.
I know. If he gave me something,
You don't
I
even
just
know
want
if
him
you're
dead.
pregnant either.
Don't even say that. Don't even. That is...
But
I don't
you
need
got
a
to
baby.
know.
I'm too young.
You've got to know.
I know.
How was life after it happened?
I was scared. I was afraid that everybody knew about it. And I didn't want anybody to think bad about me.
How do you feel now?
I know now that it wasn't my fault, and I know that I am, someone, a special person, and I don't have to take that from anybody. And I know that I will have a good life in the future.
What advice could you give kids?
I tell them if there's any kind of situation, if you ever catch yourself, you think you're going to get in that situation, try to get out of it, which I don't think I really had too much of a choice because they would have forced me if I wouldn't have went because there was 2 of them. But if you can, get out as quick as you can, and if it ever happens to you, tell somebody.
Why do you think you got in the truck?
They were just asking me, and plus it was really cold outside. I was freezing, and I needed a ride anyway, but because it was like 2 miles down the road. But I tried to tell him that it was only, you know, a small walk. But I went. It was a mistake. I don't know why I got in the truck.
What would you say to those men if you seen them today?
I'd say they're sick. I hate their guts. I'd like to tear them to pieces. If it was in my heart to kill somebody, they were the people I would kill. And I think anybody that does that to anyone is really sick, and it's like murdering somebody emotionally. It wasn't right. Hope I never see him again. If I do, I'd probably be really, really upset.
So I take it that this did put an effect on your life.
Yeah, I think about it all the time.
Do you get any counseling for this?
No. I don't think too much about it until the subject comes up. I haven't even told my mom yet. She doesn't know. The only person that knows is a certain few, and I wouldn't want it to get out. My mom soon will know, because I'm thinking about telling her.
Did this affect your life within me and trust?
Actually, it made me sexually promiscuous. Like a lot of people go through that. I had sex with guys that I didn't have no business. I shouldn't have done it, but I did, because I was looking for love in all the wrong, I was looking for love in the wrong ways. I thought if I had sex, it would make them love me more, but that's not true. It's not true.
So you say you had sex with, guys. Speaking of a lot.
Not a lot.
Few.
Well, I went against my values because ever since I was little, I was brought up to where sleep with one guy in your life, and I broke that, so that makes me feel bad that I did. And I always thought that before I told anybody about the rape, I always thought that it was my fault and I done it. I thought that, even though I was screaming and I was saying, no, I don't want this, I thought that it was just the way life was. 'Cause it happened.
Well, thank you for sharing your story with me. And for all you people out there, I just want you to know that it's never too late to tell. And I love you. We'll be right back after these commercials. Welcome back to the Big Banks Talk Show. Our next guest is Angie, and she will be sharing her story about what happened to her when she tried to say no.
This is a story about when I was molested by my stepfather. After I had turned him in, he was put in jail. My mother and I was upset so therefore it had caused a bunch of problems between us. I had started going out with different guys, and I also was sleeping with 2 or 3 a night. I was molested again. One time, one of the guys wasn't so nice, and he had molested me. I was molested by my so-called boyfriend, but never turned him in. So after that, when I was babysitting for my next-door neighbor's son, I had molested her little boy. I continued being sexually active and was molested again. This time I had turned him in. The police put him in jail, and still to this day I regret doing what I've done, which was putting myself in that situation to being molested.
What was the most painful thing for you?
Losing my mother, but I didn't want to go and live on knowing that I couldn't trust my stepfather and still living in the same house with him.
So how do you feel right now?
It still hurts, and it still hurts to this day to know that I've lost my mother over that, but I hope and pray to the Lord that we'll grow back together.
At this time, do you still think about it?
Yes, very often.
So there's a lot of pain still.
Yes.
Do you go through counseling?
No, at the beginning I did. I was in foster care and shelter care because I was taken out of my mother's home. But now they have me out of counseling and stuff. They say I can cope with my problem.
Do you sometimes think it was your fault?
Yes, very, very often, because, I mean, I also had a drinking problem, and he was an alcoholic also, so therefore it had just put us in both situations.
This time, how do you feel about yourself?
I feel bad, but I have to live up to it.
So you think that now you can go on with life?
I hope so, because I don't want it to stop.
Do you have anything to tell the people out there?
I just hope they don't get themselves in a situation that I had put myself in. And if they do, I pray to the Lord for them and hope they do know how to get themselves out of it.
Well, thank you for sharing your story with me. After these commercials, we'll be right back.
Hey, Gloria, don't you know cigarette smoke is bad for your health?
Yeah, but it's a habit that's hard to break once you start.
It's estimated that 1,200 people die a day from lung cancer related to cigarette smoke.
Well, I have too much to live for. I'm going to quit now so I can be as healthy as I can be.
And for all you people at home,
you can prevent lung cancer too.
Please don't smoke.
Welcome back to the Big Banks Talk Show. Our next guest will be telling you about how she tried to say no to sex, but couldn't. Her name is Wendy.
This happened to my good friend. She went to the park with her sister's boyfriend's friend. He started to kiss on her, and she said to stop, but he didn't. He dragged her into a barn and making her do things that she didn't want to do.
Kind of bored today, that's about it.
Me too. Just studying for school.
I missed you a lot. So are you gonna give me a kiss now or what?
No.
Why not? I'm gonna give me a kiss. Just one.
No.
Come on, just
No.
And then when she got home, she didn't tell no one. She started to run away a lot. And one day I saw her at the mall and I started to talk to her. And I told her, why don't you tell your mom? We started to talk and she told me what happened to her. And I told her, why don't you tell someone? She said, because I'm scared to, because I should have told her when it happened to me. So the next day she went to her mom and told her about what happened to her.
And her mom got her help, and she was happy that she told someone what happened to her because it was hurting her.
What have you learned about yourself or others?
Make sure you're around some people, and make sure you have a friend or with you somewhere when you go somewhere.
How did you feel when she first told you about it?
I didn't know what to do at first, and then we started talking. I told her to go talk to her mom and tell her mom that she needed help to go to counseling or something.
But did you kind of feel upset real bad?
Yeah.
About it because it was your friend?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing the story with us. We'll be right back with our next person. And for all you out there, don't you dare turn that channel.
Different food. Different faces. Different cultures. Different places of worship. We learn to accept people by keeping an open mind and trying. Different foods. Seeing different faces. Different cultures. And going to different places of worship.
Welcome back to the Big Banks Talk Show. We'll be having another guest telling her story about what happened to her when she wanted to say no, but couldn't. Her name is Amanda. Amanda, would you like to tell everybody what happened to you?
Yes, one day a friend and I planned to go swim to the swimming pool, but it was closed. So she asked me if I wanted to go for a walk through the woods, and I said yeah. So we started walking through the woods, and we heard some bushes move, so we turned around, but there was nobody there. So we turned back around, and there was a guy standing there, and we asked him who he was, and he said he was a police officer. So I asked him where his ID was, and he said it was in his van. And we asked him if he would walk with us through the woods, because we was afraid that somebody might do something to us. And he said yes, and then I was walking by him, and my friend was walking up front, and he pulled a knife out, and he stuck it up to my throat. And he told my friend to take off her clothes, and she started running. And then he tore off my clothes and raped me. And then he was getting up, and I kicked him where it really hurts. And then I started running, and I ran back to the pool, and the police were there.
Did this make a difference in your relationships?
Yes, I was afraid of guys, and I didn't like to be around hardly anybody. I was always closed in with myself.
What are your feelings now?
Well, I can communicate with guys better, but if I see somebody that I don't know or somebody that looks weird to me, I run.
Do you trust a lot of people?
No, I don't, because what happened to me in the past.
Was this your first experience in being raped?
No, it wasn't. I've been raped or molested 6 times in my life.
Did you start acting out after you had been raped? Acting out like having a relationship with different guys, or did you just stop it all?
I stayed with the same guy that I was going out with at the time.
What would you like to tell the kids about rape?
I would like to tell them that if something like this happened to them, then they should speak up, because it could really mess up their life and probably make them commit suicide because of something like this.
Did you ever try to kill yourself once before?
No.
Well, thank you for sharing your story with me. After this, we'll be right back.
Hey, it's nice for you to have me over tonight.
You're welcome. I learned something new today. I know not to judge people before I meet them. My dad told me some bad things about Jews, but I met a Jew today, and Jews are not that bad after all.
I'm glad that you don't judge people before you know them. I'm real happy for you.
Thank you. Please don't judge people before you know them.
Welcome back to the Big Banks Talk Show. We're back with our next speaker. She will be telling her story about what happened to her when she wanted to say no, but couldn't. And her name is Heather Aldrich. And this is her story.
Hi, I was coming home from school one day, and this guy I knew for my life had asked me if I wanted to ride home. So, of course, I said yeah. And I got into the car, and we started moving. And I said, well, where are we going? And he said, well, we're going to my mother's house. And we didn't go to his mother's. We went to this abandoned house. And next thing I know, he was making me do things to him that I didn't want to do. And I was too scared and everything. And he dropped me off at my house afterwards. And I was just terrified. And I started crying. And I closed myself in my room. And I wouldn't talk to anybody. And I was just all closed in. And I just don't, to this day, I just don't like where I'm at.
How do you feel about yourself now?
Not too good. I've pretty much got a real low self because of what has happened to me in my lifetime.
Would you ever go on a date by yourself with another person?
With just one guy? No, I would never. Because I would never take the chance of what happened to me before to let it happen again. I would always take at least one other date with me. Besides, it would be like me and him and somebody else and somebody else. I would never go by myself.
Did this change your feelings toward men?
Oh yeah, a lot. I'm just to the point where I would rather just stay away from them, at least an arm distance away, because of the fact that I'm just too scared to be around them, because I don't want to take the chances of them happening to me as it has before. It has scared me just a little bit too much.
So your experience with men isn't that well?
My feelings for men really isn't that well, I guess you could say, because I'm just too scared.
So in what kind of way did it change?
A lot, just like into trust and fear and me being too scared and me just not wanting to be around them very much. I would just rather be by myself and with my family than be around men without other people, because of the fact if I'm around other people and with men, I'm afraid they're all just gonna like gang up on me and I'm just gonna go berserk.
So did you feel more comfortable around women than men?
I have to say yes, because I can talk to them and I feel that they can understand me better than a man could ever or will ever.
But you'll still have the same feelings for men like you always have.
To a point, yeah, because I'm just to a point, since this has happened to me, it has changed my whole life, and I'm afraid that I just don't want to take that risk of going back and being the same risk.
Your whole life like in what?
Because when they have changed my feelings towards men, my feelings towards women, my feelings towards both sexual preferences, my feelings towards my family, because when I had told my mother, she laughed at me and said, ha ha ha, he would never do that, it's not for real, and all this, and it's happening to my family now, and it's just to the fact that it has just changed my whole thought of mind, my whole state of mind, and it has made me become reckless and, how do you want to call that?
Not be sure of what I want to go to.
What I want, how I feel, what I'm going to do to the next point in my life. It's made me rebel against a lot of rules and expectations that I've had for myself in my lifetime.
What advice would you like to give to people out there in the audience?
I would just like to say, if it has ever happened to you, to never be scared to tell somebody, because it's not your fault. You're the victim, not the victimizer. And no matter what you do, it's never too late to please go tell someone. And for my most advice is, don't go somewhere where you can't scream and holler to let somebody else know that there's something wrong and you need help. And again, don't go anywhere just you and him, somewhere where you have never been, Go places where you know you've been there and how to get away from it as soon as possible if this is ever if you think this is ever going to happen to you. And most of all, always have a third and fourth party. Never go just you and him. And don't be afraid to tell people. That should be your most important thing. If you go to someone you can trust, if not to your parents, if not to your friend, tell God, tell somebody, because if not, it's going to tear you apart. It's going to tear your immune system down, and your emotions. It's going to tear you apart. It's going to make you have a lot of mental stress and a lot of mental problems.
Well, thank you for sharing your story with me. And for all you people out there, I just want you to know that it's never too late to tell. And I love you. We'll be right back after these commercials. Hello, Linda. Would you like to tell us your story?
Yes, I would. And I think it's important for us all to share experiences that we've had with sex in our early years so that others can learn and grow from that and maybe have a learning experience from it also, as we have. I began getting involved in sex when I was 11 years old, and it was with a man who was in his late 20s or early 30s. I was feeling an emptiness at that time in my life, and I began searching for some fulfillment, and I thought it was through getting involved with men. So that was the first time I'd had sex, was when I was 11 years old. And that first time of having sex was just the beginning of a road of destruction for me in my life. It caused a lot of pain for me, and it caused a lot of heartache for my family. From the age of 11 through 17, I had close to 40-some men in and out of my life, each time being used and rejected over and over again, but each time thinking that these guys really cared for me. And I think that's where a lot of times we get messed up, as we think that the men really do care for us, so that we will have sex with them, and then we find out in a very short time that we're only being used. During this time in my life, I was interested in nothing but being involved with men and feeling needed and loved. And I missed a lot of school during that time. I was sent to the Indiana Girls' School for truancy. And during that time, I still had that emptiness within me. So when I was out of the girls' school, I was put on parole for a year. And during that time, I went right back to doing what I'd done before. And I broke my parole and had to go to the girls' school again for a second time. So looking back now, I can see that sex causes a lot more harm than we even realize. Not only the fact that it can give us diseases and cause us to become pregnant, but it can destroy our lives just like any other addiction can, such as alcohol or drugs or whatever. Sex is a very dangerous thing to do, and I just advise anyone who's considering doing it not to do it, and to look for their fulfillment in other means, such as I have, is by knowing the Lord and finding His love and knowing the fulfillment that He can give us.
Did that make you feel popular?
Yes, at the time, having sex with men did make me feel popular, because it made me feel like they cared about me and that I was being somebody special to them. But in reality, I was nothing to them.
What was the results of all that?
Well, the results was that I was on a downhill roll and that I was heading for I don't know what all, but I know that it was leading me down a road that was going nowhere. I know that I would have probably ended up pregnant. I was just lucky that I never did end up pregnant, but I lost a lot of time in school. I was sent to the girls' school. I was away from my family. And like I said before, sex involves a lot of other things besides just the sex. It affects your family life, it affects your school, and it affects your friendships. So the result of it is just a downhill roll that doesn't stop.
What advice do you have?
Advice that I have to give to anybody that's considering having sex for a first time, or even if they are now, to stop and not do it, because it's not going to bring any happiness. It's not going to bring popularity to your life. It's only going to bring problems, and you are the one who's going to have to face those problems alone. When everybody's gone and the parties are over, you're left alone, and the sex then does nothing for you. It only causes trouble. So I advise anyone who's considering it to think twice about it. I'm very thankful to be on this show today and share, as the other girls have, about sex and how it can destroy our lives. And I'm also thankful for the opportunity to come and share about what God can do when He comes in and fills our lives. And I know now that from looking for other people and other things all my life for fulfillment, I know now that only Jesus Christ can give that fulfillment in our lives. And I'm very thankful to have an opportunity, and I'm thankful that He uses me to go into the women's correctional institutions here in Indiana and sharing with others what He has done for me, and to encourage others to try the Lord and to let His love come into their hearts and to fill them up with His love and His fulfillment. He is our answer, and He's the only one who can ever satisfy completely. And I'm so thankful for His love and His goodness in my life. I'd like to share a song right now that kind of sums up what He's done for me in my life. And it's called He Was There All the Time. I went searching for peace in some void. I was trying to blame all my ills on this world I was in, and surface relationships used me till I was done in. All the while someone was begging to free me from sin. He was there all the time. He was there all the time, waiting patiently in love. He was there all the time. was there all the time. He was there all the You know, it was at a very early age in my life when I began to sense an unsatisfied feeling in me, like a big hole in my heart. And you know, I know now what that was. It was an absence of God in my life. We all have this emptiness within us. God created us with a spirit and with a soul. And when He's not in our lives or not a part of our lives, there's an emptiness and there's a searching. And it's caused by not knowing God and by not having Him in our hearts and in our lives. Only God can ever satisfy completely. We all get caught up in addictions and frustrations. Did you know that addictions do come from frustrations in our lives, from not being satisfied? There's a restlessness and emptiness that is inside of us that is constantly stirring us up to try to find fulfillment. And for me, I was trying to use sex for fulfillment. I was trying to have these men fulfill something in my life that only God can fill. We all search for fulfillment. Some of us may turn to drugs, some may turn to alcohol. There are many, many forms of addictions that come from trying to find fulfillment. And for me, it was sex, and it is for many, many young teenage girls and boys, and it is, as well as adults. But you know, we don't have to walk that road. When we know the Lord, we can turn to Him and He'll help us through those rough times. When we're looking for love and fulfillment, we can turn to God and He will give us that love and fulfillment we need. We don't have to ruin our lives with sex and with drugs and alcohol or whatever the thing may be that we're hanging on to for fulfillment. God is there with our answer. God is the answer to our every need, our every longing, our every hurt. He is there for us. My life was simply destroyed as a teenager. All of my teenage years were ruined from trying to find fulfillment through sex and men. At a time in my life when I should have been happy and been involved in school activities and been with friends, I was out on the streets looking for men to satisfy an emptiness in me. And it's not a fun thing. We try to trick ourselves into thinking that these men really do care for us. But in the back of our minds, we have to know that they're only using us. There was many times that I would walk home in the morning after an all-night party, lonely and hurting, because I was alone again. That only satisfies temporarily, and then it's gone, and then you're left with that much more hurt and pain than you were before you started. If there was just a word that I could say to anyone out there who's considering sex or is heavily into sex for their fulfillment, the word is don't. Because it's only going to leave you hurting and in pain. It can cause you to end up in a girls' school or a boys' school just like it did me. And it can cause problems in your adulthood also. There's nothing outside of marriage that we should be involved in sex. God created sex for the married couple, and that's where it's supposed to stay. And if we read our Bible, and we'll understand that, and we'll know that it can be a beautiful thing. It doesn't have to be an ugly thing, and it doesn't have to be a perverted thing. It can be a beautiful thing if it's done right in God's eyes.
Thank you for your story. And for you listeners out there, I also have something to tell you. It's never too late to tell. And no matter what may happen in your life, you will always be somebody. And remember that whenever you feel down and low, there's always somebody high. And you need to pray to God. Thank you for listening to the Big Bank Talk Show. And everybody take it easy and keep a smile on your face. Get down, get down, right? And listen to this rap message about to come up. Yeah.
I'm keeping my
my legs closed. I'm keeping my legs closed. You know, sometimes we need to quit having sex. It's a risk to society. You know what I'm saying? I'm keeping my legs closed because I'm going to find me somebody who's true to the game. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I want to kiss and hug to let you know that I care. We don't need to have sex to have a love affair. Looking into your eyes, you got me hypnotized. Meaning when you say you let me, tell me no lies. Share it with me, your hopes and your dreams. You'll find a true love. It's more than it seems. Sex is not everything, it's even a risk. So why don't we just settle for a long-lasting kiss? If you're gonna be dead, you're gonna be left for good and bad. That's the kind of love that I'm willing to have in a relationship. Most people want lust, but where I'm coming from, I only want trust. Not only trust, but all that is given. Being together, hugging and kissing. There's so much that needs to be shared. You don't know how much that I care.
I hope you all had a good time watching the Big Bang Show. Tune in next week to the next episode, and don't never let the station go. Check it out.
Alright, pump your fists in the air. Swing them like I just don't care. No sex.